So what do they call you?
They call me Sean now, but I used to be suspect from Sacramento.
Sean, what are you incarcerated for, sir, and how long is your sentence?
I am serving 25 to life for conspiracy to commit murder, 7 to life for aggravated kidnap for extortion, and I believe something like 12 years for auto theft and 2 counts of using somebody else's credit card.
Sean, by any chance, at any time in your life, did you belong to any type of gangs, or groups, organizations, or anything like that, sir?
No, I did my best to avoid stuff like that. I always figured I didn't need a bunch of people's problems and I didn't need them to help me with mine.
You know, the very first thing that I want to go ahead and ask you is, what does conspiracy to commit murder mean? I know that perhaps you're going to take some time on elaborating a little about your case as well. So I'm going to go ahead and let you take over the floor and go ahead and take your time and express to us on exactly what was it that happened and how the hell your whole world turned upside down, Sean.
Conspiracy to commit murder, technically speaking, I guess, is an agreement between 2 people to kill unlawfully another human being. Under normal circumstances, that requires that both people have the intent to kill. In my case, it's a little bit complicated. I guess I'll give you a little bit of lead up to that. I'm mostly state raised. I did group homes and foster homes until they got tired of me and they sent me to the California Youth Authority when I was 16. I spent a couple of years in that hell, and at some point, time ran out. November 17th, 2001, they kind of tossed me out, and I was an 18-year-old homeless dude. A couple of times I tried to get on my feet. I did it. A couple of times also I failed. I ended up locked up again for stealing a car, September 6th, 2002. I got out January 3rd, 2003, with nothing but the clothes I was wearing for the summer when I got arrested before. And I had to start over, and I did. And then a series of unfortunate events led me to, start over again. At some point, I found myself with my co-defendant, and she was upset with her boyfriend, wanted to rob him. I felt like that was fine, at the time. I was a homeless teenager with not a whole lot of life experience, and we happened to end up, me, my girlfriend at the time, that girl who was my co-defendant.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And her boyfriend, Nicholas Hammond, at a building in Auburn that had formerly been a juvenile hall. And at some point, while my girlfriend Erin and I were in another part of the building, we heard a door slam and went to go see what it was. And my co-defendant had locked this guy in a holding cell that he couldn't get out of. We did proceed to rob him for his loose cash and his credit cards. Took the keys to his car and drove it around a bit. At some point, my co-defendant decided she was intent on killing this dude, and I really wasn't what I bargained for, But I was kind of afraid that she would blame me for the whole thing because, I've seen her do that to dudes before. So I kind of spent a couple of days walking a fine line and trying not to kill this dude while also trying not to end up blamed for the whole thing. So at some point, we carried out a plan, in quotations, if you will, to use this guy's car to carbon monoxide him to death. And we ran a hose into the building, and I made sure that it didn't go to the cell he was in. And we went and turned the car on for about 15 minutes, and I told her that was enough, and we left. And she dropped a note in a gas station bathroom that said this guy was drowning in the juvenile jail, and that I kidnapped her, and they arrested me, and they charged me. And, well, that's that. I went to a jury trial, and the jury found me not guilty of most things. They found me guilty of the things that I just told you. And after trial, they bunch of them spent some time crying in the courtroom as they served the verdict, and they grabbed my lawyer after the trial and wanted to talk to him, and they all wrote a bunch of letters and affidavits saying, how is it we found this kid guilty of this crime? Yeah, he didn't intend to kill anybody. That's obvious to all of us. How is it he's going to go to prison for life for 25 years? In fact, I think one of the jurors wrote, "Please, I beg the courts to reconsider. Please do not throw this young life away." Another guy wrote that Sean should spend no more than 1 year in confinement and things like that of that nature. It was very clear that they all said I didn't intend to kill anybody. And I got sent to prison for 25 to life. See, the thing about it is, back then, I think it's a little different now, but back then they could use what was called the natural and probable consequences doctrine, which was an invention of the courts during the Get Tough on Crime era. And so the prosecutor was able to say, it doesn't matter that he didn't have intent, she did, so he's just as guilty. And that's kind of where we stand now. In 2015, I filed a petition for a habeas corpus trying to overturn my convictions when the Attorney General sent me copies of letters my victim had written expressing that he had knowingly committed perjury during my trial to get me sent to prison for life. And he had sent some to the district attorney of Placer County, and they ignored them and didn't tell me about them. And I really thought in 2016 I was going to overturn my case and go home. And what ended up happening was they dragged their feet long enough for the victim to be released from custody, and I was unable to produce him for the evidentiary hearing, so the judge ruled against me and kept me in prison. So to answer your question, what does conspiracy to commit murder consist of? In my case, it consists of robbing a dude and being there while some girl wants to kill her boyfriend and kind of making sure it doesn't happen.
You said that she has actually done this before. What do you mean by that?
Well, we tried to introduce evidence at trial that she had set up other teenage boys to take the fall for crimes she committed. Like at some point, she broke into a church in Auburn and stole all their donation cash and I think some stereo equipment. And she did blame it on a couple of kids named Travis Welty and Ian Grimes. And they wanted to come and testify to that, and the judge wouldn't let them. And there were other instances like that.
And just to be crystal clear, because I'm a little slow myself, conspiracy to commit murder. So the victim did not, in fact, pass away.
No, actually, I'm sure it was a horrible ordeal for the guy. He was stuck in a holding cell and he set off a fire sprinkler on himself, and he was in there with it for something like 35 hours. But his injuries were minor trench foot, which is what happens like when you're in the bath and your feet and hands get wrinkly, and minor hypothermia because he was, I think, 1 degree below normal body temperature when they pulled him out of there. And to be clear, he stated at trial that he never smelled any carbon monoxide or exhaust gas from a car. I made sure of that, and he said at trial he never smelled any car exhaust.
I must ask, what would compel you to put yourself in a position like that to begin with? To be capable of doing something like that?
There's a lot of things that go into that. It's, I grew up state raised, group homes, foster homes, lots of juvenile hall, and I grew up in environments where violence was very normalized for me. I realize now later in life that that's not how civilized people act, but, as a 19-year-old kid with very limited life experience, and the life experience I had was in, pressure cooker environments of full of people that were antisocial. I learned that, harming other people wasn't a big deal. I learned that taking what you want, even if it deprives somebody else of it wrongfully, is fine. And
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
being a 19-year-old parolee, homeless with no family to count on, taking this guy's money, and I hate to say it like this because, I'm a different person now than I was 21 years ago. At the time, the rationale that my co-defendant hit me with, made perfect sense to me. This guy's a convicted pedophile. He sizes little boys. He's hanging out with a bunch of teenagers he probably wants to molest. He burnt me on my arm. He's fucked up to me. Why not take his money and his car? And 19-year-old me was like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. That's fine. Let's do that. At some point, though, it really spiraled out of my control, and I was kind of just along for the ride, trying to figure out how to survive it, how to make it through it, and control the damage. And I don't know. I really go back to being a 19-year-old kid with very limited experience. When you grow up in group homes and foster homes, you don't get this socialization that you would get being a normal kid going to public high school and going out on dates and going to dances and to the mall. I hate to say it like this, I was kind of retarded socially. So, of course, I kind of had a diminished
You have 60 seconds remaining.
ability to make choices. I didn't know how big the world was and what all the options were that were available to me at the time, or how to navigate the world very, very well. So when this easy fix pops up and it doesn't violate the morals and values I had at the time, I was just like, okay, yeah, run that. Now, I'll call you right back. All right, so to backtrack just a second and elaborate on my answer to your question, yes, I got 25 to life for conspiracy to commit murder as a 19-year-old kid for a crime that involves no weapon, no death, no serious injury, and no strikes. I'm a first termer, my first time in prison. There was no serious injury. The net loss was $80 that the victim suffered, and his horrible ordeal inside that holding cell in that building.
At that point in
Sometimes I do the math and it just doesn't work out. The cost to California taxpayers to incarcerate somebody is pretty hefty. It's above $130,000 a year now, and it says to me that for an $80 robbery, California taxpayers have paid almost $2 million to incarcerate me.
Yeah, that's absurd, man, to think that for $80 you're behind bars. I must ask, at that point in time when you guys did this mistake, did this woman actually think that this individual was dead? What was her reaction? What was her thought process? Did you see joy? Did you see the look of joy on her face?
At the time, when I turned the car off and I pulled the hose out and I told her he was dead, let's go, she wanted to go inside and check, and I tried to talk her out of it. And then she did go inside and look, and she came back out, and she wanted to go in and beat him to death with something and a bunch of other shit. And I was just like, you know what? By that point, I was just fed up, and I was like, hey, you know what? If that's what you want to do, go in there and do it yourself. I'm tired of it. I'm going to go back down to my house. I'm going to get a hacksaw. I'm going to cut the chain off that water main out front and turn the water off, and we're going to figure out what to do next. And in my mind, I think I wondered if after turning the water off, we could just talk it out with the dude, get him out of there if we could, cut the hinges off of the door. Like, I figured we could figure out some sort of resolution to this. And I think that's when she turned on me. That's when she told me, hey, we need gas. Go ahead and pull into this Shell station here. And she went in to use the bathroom and told that store clerk, hey, I knocked over your trash hamper in there. Go look. And he found that note.
What note?
The note that she dropped in the gas station bathroom. That's how we got pulled over. That's how I got arrested. She left a note in there that said, help, we're driving this red Chevy Beretta. Nicholas Hammond is in the old juvenile jail drowning. Sean Rodriguez kidnapped me. And
that's where the kidnapping charge comes from.
Said everything else. So the kidnapping charge wasn't about her. They knew right off that she was a liar. The kidnapping charges. Okay, so this is kind of complicated. I'll start this off by explaining that if you use the great and powerful Google or ChatGPT and you look up my prosecutor, William Markey, Marchi, you'll find that he was fired from the Placer County District Attorney's Office after an investigation into the sheriffs or police revealed that he was sending very unethical messages on his work phone, including racial slurs. I see this as evidence that the dude was really unethical. He was kind of a bag of trash. And I say that to point out that this guy was really, really devious. He wasn't the most, I don't want to keep saying ethical, but he didn't have a lot of scruples. This guy knew that he was using perjured testimony. He bullied my then girlfriend out of testifying on my behalf. He knew that she was going to testify the truth, that when this guy was locked in that room, me and her were in a different part of the building and I was with her. I wasn't there. And when it was coming up time for trial, he told her, she got on the stand outside the presence of the jury, started answering questions. And at some point when my lawyer asked her, where were you when this guy got locked in this room and who was with you? The DA stood up and said, if you answer that question, then you were there and I'm going to charge you with everything I'm charging him with. And that made sure that she didn't testify and tell the jury that I wasn't there when this guy was locked up. So at some point, and we got the victim to admit this when he was on the stand, right before trial, the detective, Daniel Coe, who, by the way, and I want to take a side street real fast. I want the people listening to know how screwed up the justice system is here. When I went back in 2015 to the county jail to almost overturn my case, I saw that Detective Daniel Coe had been busted down to transportation cop. That's not a promotion. That doesn't just happen because you're a good cop. So both of these guys have had disgrace in their careers after my case. And it's no wonder. We got the victim to admit when he was on the stand that Detective Daniel Coe and Prosecutor William Markey came to the county jail and visited him and told him what to say because the story he made up didn't make sense. They showed him a map of the building and helped him to create the story that he told on the stand. And I mean, I'm allowed to say this because I have in my possession and posted online letters from the victim to the Attorney General of California and to the District Attorney of Placer County that say, hey, I commit perjury when I testified in this trial. And he listed some of the things he perjured himself about. So it's not like I'm making this up. So to answer your question about the kidnapping, they concocted this story that I hid in some place behind a door that is 100% impossible to hide behind. And at some point when my co-defendant closed the door, this guy stuck his...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Allegedly somehow through my co-defendant and through the metal door I was able to kick this guy and make him pull his leg in. And that's the story they tried to sell to the jury, and most of the jury didn't buy that. Again, I have these post-trial, questionnaires, declarations, etc. from the jury. They don't believe it. They don't believe that happened. What they do believe is that because of the natural and probable consequences doctrine, they believe they were told by the prosecutor that it doesn't matter if he intended to do all these things. She did, so he's just as guilty. Those are part of the court record, so I can say that with certainty. Another point worth noting is that the prosecutor guy, he was real clever and devious in the way that he charged me. And you can see this in what the jury had to say. They were given two options regarding that particular crime. One was aggravated kidnap for purposes of extortion, which is a 7 to life felony, or a felony false imprisonment. That's a violation of California Penal Code 236. And the thing is, that can either be a felony or a misdemeanor. The felony is like 1 year in the county jail, and the misdemeanor is, I think, 4 months or something. The difference between the felony and the misdemeanors, the felony has to be committed by violence, menace, fraud, or deceit. So when the jury was doing their reasoning in the jury room, when they were deliberating, and they explained this to my lawyer at the time, they believed that my conduct in relation to the kidnapping of Nicholas Hammond was not violent, which means they don't believe that I was there and kicked the guy. So they could not find me guilty of the 1 year felony false imprisonment because, remember, it has to be a false imprisonment committed by violence, menace, fraud, or deceit. So if you can't find me guilty of the 1 year felony false imprisonment, but I did something, and the DA is telling you that if she intended to kidnap or whatever this guy, I was just as guilty. What you do then is you defer away from the 1 year felony to the aggravated kidnap for extortion, because that doesn't include the word violence. So for a factor in mitigation, they gave me 7 to life instead of 1 year for the alleged kidnapping. Interesting quirk of the legal system.
Man, this is wild. This is a wild
See,
situation.
The thing is, if the district attorney had elected to also charge me in front of a jury with misdemeanor false imprisonment, that they all said it in writing, that is what they would have found me guilty of. No 7 to life. But he knew what he was doing. He was very devious. And all of this is public record. Like, I'm not saying things that I can't back up with paperwork and documents. So like, for instance, I told you I went back to the county jail in 2016, and like I said, the district attorney, so at that time, I was up against William Markey again by myself, and I caught him committing perjury in real time, and I filed a motion with the judge to hold Mr. Markey in contempt of court for perjury. I asked the court to take judicial notice of his committing perjury in writing. It was undeniable, indisputable. And then suddenly Mr. Markey was no longer on my case, no longer employed by the Placer County District Attorney's Office, and I was up against somebody else. And then they drug it out past statutory deadlines, a full 16 months, waiting for the victim to be released from custody into homelessness so that I could not, from my jail cell, find him and produce him for the evidentiary hearing. So the judge ruled against me, he said, in part because he couldn't weigh personally the credibility of the recanting victim.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And then he went on to state, I haven't seen evidence that even one juror would change their mind as a result of the recanted testimony. And so that's the thing. Like, I fired the public defender he gave me once because he wouldn't even interview the victim, let alone track down the jurors. And I knew a bunch of the jurors' names. I don't think I should probably say them on this program, but like, I had access to cell phones in prison. I mean, we talked about this before. Hell, I became a porn star in prison on a cell phone. It's not like I couldn't find and contact these jurors myself. I wanted to refrain from doing that because the court would really frown upon that. But so 2 years ago, we did, in fact, contact one of the jurors, and we have a statement from her posted online that says, yeah, knowing that that guy was committing perjury would have changed her vote to not guilty. And technically speaking, legally speaking, that's an automatic reversal of my case. But Placer County just does not play ball. You know, we've seen all of these resentencing measures, AB 600, 775, 1437. Placer County has resentenced 2 people. After all these legal changes, you see Gascon in LA County, he's resentenced something like 40,000 people since these law changes started. He's following the intent.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Placer County's resentenced 2 people. And I really want to actually dig into that for a second. I have a very absurd thing that I'd like to point out to you that'll make you chuckle, but it's kind of heartbreaking. So if you don't mind, I'll call you. You'll remember that it's undeniable that I got sent to prison for 25 for life plus 7 for life due to the intent of my co-defendant, not my own intent. The district attorney instructed the jury that they need to transfer my co-defendant's intent to me because I agreed to commit robbery initially. And therefore, due to the natural and probable consequences doctrine, I am guilty of anything that is the natural and probable consequence of agreeing to commit an $80 robbery. You with me so far?
Yes, sir. I'm listening.
Okay, so in 2016, as our courts and our legislature were beginning to shift away from the lock 'em up, feed the prison industrial complex, make the California Correctional and Peace Officers Association stronger and more powerful and more manipulative, we started to get away from the politics of fear mongering and lying about the crime rates to scare the public. After Prop 36 and Prop 47 passed and realignment happened, and all of these tough on crime, back the blue lobbyists were screaming, "Oh my God, they're going to get out of prison! All these, your dog, get burned down your house, and hair on fire politics," right? None of that happened, and so our legislature started to shift away from the mass incarceration politics that had been so prevalent since the mid '80s, and so too did our courts for the most part. And in 2016, there was a somewhat landmark case, People versus Chiu, CHIU. And the California Supreme Court ruled that you can't hold somebody who was an aider and abetter liable for first-degree murder when somebody else did the killing, because they did not form the specific intent to kill unless you actually prove that they had the specific intent to kill. Meaning that you can't say they agreed to rob a bank. So, and I think what really did this, I don't know how much you or your listeners may remember about this, but back in, say,
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
3 or 4 young Hispanic men decided to rob a bank in Stockton. They took a teller hostage, jumped in an SUV, ran all over Stockton, running from the cops. The cops were shooting at them. They were shooting at the cops. And during this chase, the cops shot the teller and they killed her. and the cops shot 2 of the co-defendants and they killed them, and they captured the driver. They then charged the driver with 3 counts of murder for people that the cops had killed during the chase. The cops killed these people with their bullets while this kid drove, and they charged him with 3 counts of murder for this. And there was a little bit of a public outrage for that. A lot of people thought that, hey, this is crazy. This is weird. How can this happen? So at the time, People versus Chu, state Supreme Court eliminates the natural and probable consequences doctrine as a valid theory of law. They pointed out that, this is an invention of the courts. The judicial branch cannot enact laws. California and federal constitution says that the legislative branch creates laws. The executive branch can't do it, and neither can the judicial branch. So they ended the natural and probable consequences doctrine. So then there was a Senate hearing, Senate concurrent resolution, such and such, made it official. They outlawed the natural and probable consequences doctrine. Then our legislature got together and they passed Senate Bill 1437, which took effect January 1st, 2018. And what 1437 did was they said retroactively, that means people in the past who have been charged with a capital crime or a first-degree murder because they were an aider and abettor and they were charged with the natural and probable consequences doctrine can now apply, fill out this one-page form, and there has to be a hearing, and a lot of cases got overturned because, a lot of these people, they were only guilty of second-degree murder at best because they never had the specific intent to kill. They just wanted to commit the target offense of a robbery or something like that, right? So at the time, it was just murder and attempted murder that were eligible. And then the courts, the conservative pockets of California, like Placer County, San Luis Obispo County, they played a lot of hinky games, man. They looked for ways to undermine it and not apply it and deny the people from their counties relief, while all people from, metropolitan areas like Sacramento, San Francisco, Los Angeles, they're getting resentenced for the law. So the legislature went ahead and doubled down a couple of years ago, something like 2021. They passed Senate Bill 775, which gave 1437 teeth. They said from now on, the presumption of resentencing favors the defendants. And if they make an assertion that they were found guilty with the natural and probable consequences doctrine, it is now incumbent upon the prosecutor to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they would have gained a conviction without the use of the natural and probable consequences doctrine. Otherwise, you got to let these guys go. So a lot of people have been using that, because our prisons have been full to the brim of people serving life sentences for crimes other people committed because they were there for some reason or another. And I'm not saying the reasons they were there weren't felonious. I'm not saying they were there to do right. Clearly, they were there to do wrong. I was there to do wrong, But now I come to the really crazy, absurd thing about this. So 775 extended that retroactivity, get out of jail free card to murder, attempted murder, and manslaughter. If you were found guilty of those crimes with the use of the natural and probable consequences doctrine, you get to go home, right? So I want to give you 2 scenarios. I want you to jump in a car with me, and we're going to call this scenario A. And you and me are riding down the street. I'm driving, you're the passenger, and we see, Barney the purple dinosaur on the sidewalk walking. And I say to you, hey, Tony, let's kill Barney. And you lean out the window and you blow Barney's brains out and he dies. You and me go to prison for life. 20 years ago, right? Now 1437 and 775 pass. And guess what? I get to go home because you're the one that pulled the trigger. That's the way the law operates now. And I think that's fair. So in scenario B, you and me are going to be riding along in the same car. I'm driving, you're the passenger. We see Barney, the purple dinosaur, on the sidewalk, and I say, hey, man, let's kill Barney. And You, Tony, you lean out the window and you squirt Barney with your squirt gun, and we keep driving, and Barney's upset, but he's fine. And you and me go.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You and me go to prison for 25 to life for conspiracy to murder Barney, the purple dinosaur. 20 years pass. 1437 passes, 775 passes. You and me both sit in prison for life, even though Barney didn't die. Now, don't you think it's absurd that the only way that you get relief from the natural and probable consequences doctrine is if Barney actually dies? You stay in prison for life if Barney lives. Isn't that weird?
You just blew me away. You just blew me away with that.
That's the position I'm currently in. I watch all these guys go home where they committed a crime and somebody died, and I'm still doing 25 years to life in prison. Almost 2 years ago, I reached a point where I've been in prison longer than I was alive before I came to prison. And the thing is, and I don't know if this is carrying to you and your viewers, I'm not a horrible guy. You know, I've learned a lot as I've grown up, and I'd like to point out that, you know, it's really hard to become a more moral and ethical person when you're in the pressure cooker that I'm in. You know, I started my term at High Desert when that place was rocking and rolling and somebody was dying every week. And I spent 20 years level 4, most of it on 180 design yards or in the shoe. And I finally got an override. I'm at a nice place now. I still have 246 points, but I've made the override stick for 2 years. When I went to board in 2021, the board commissioner told me, yeah, you meet all the criteria for a youthful offender, man. All your work reports are good. I can see that you've learned a lot and you've grown. Don't get any more write-ups and get another vocation, and we'll let you out of prison. And I came here and became a certified electronic systems technician. I'm working on the certifications that will allow me to be a supervisor at a hospital, supervising other janitors. I became a certified office specialist via Microsoft. I'm hoping they'll let me out of prison, but I really wish they would give me some of the action the other guys are getting, you know?
And based off your observation, I'm sure you have seen some of the worst individuals that just happen to slip through the cracks, who have committed some of the most heinous of crimes, but somehow like they just slipped through the cracks and now they're free.
Oh yeah. Oh no, man. That's something that's really ate me up like for a long time. You know, I spent a long time in prison alone, like with nobody to help me. I had to learn every trade you can in prison. I learned how to distill alcohol. I learned how to make a soldering iron out of spare parts in my cell and fix electronics for people. You know, I had to survive. CDCR, they don't give you deodorant. They don't give you shampoo. They don't give you laundry detergents. You know, you got to figure out a way to survive in prison. And so I used to struggle financially, and I would watch these guys that were complete and utter puddles of shit, sitting at gambling tables, high on meth and heroin, gambling away their family's money, jumping on the telephone, screaming at people, calling them everything but their name, telling them to send more money, and they actually did it. They get all the money they want, and they have all the things they need, and they squander it on drugs and gambling. And then they go home. These dudes, they go home, they come back, they go home, they come back, and it just blows my mind, man. The worst of the bullies. I mean, I can't really say the worst. I've been on the yards with the worst. And hell, 3 dudes I spent time with at New Folsom just got found guilty in a federal indictment a couple of months ago. They're going to get the needle. Those guys are killers. Those guys are off the charts. and they're not going home. But yeah, no, I've seen a lot of guys that are real dirtbags. Just get to go home and come back and go home and come back, man. It blows my mind.
Do you think that you will eventually get some action and go home? Do you actually really believe that?
Uh, you know, I have to. I have to believe. See, I stopped believing. I know your viewers probably don't know a whole hell of a lot about me. I came to prison angry, very angry. I knew that I had been done wrong. Even my young, uninformed morals and values knew that something was wrong with how it all went. And I came to prison angry and with a chip on my shoulder, and I did a lot of things I regret. I lashed out, and I found myself in 2012 in Corcoran Shoe, and I was miserable. And I got to thinking, like, why do I, in Corker Shoe, they would turn that bright fluorescent light on at 5:30 in the morning. It didn't go off till 11 at night. And they'd bring that train.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Man, it was the same shit every day. The same people. Go out to that yard cage, dog run and do burpees. Handcuffed on the way there and on the way back. I was miserable, and I decided I didn't want life anymore, and I killed myself. I was dead. So on July 2nd, 2012, I killed myself. They defibrillated me in the ambulance. I spent 3 days in the ICU in Bakersfield before they sent me back to the prison. They kept me on suicide watch for 52 days while they got a court order to medicate me against my will. And then they sent me on up to Pelican Bay Shoe. And I hated my life. And it was a long road back. I had to learn a lot. I had to learn a lot about myself. I had to dig deep, man. And now I can honestly say, like, there's no way that with all the prison closures and people getting out that they can justify keeping me in prison, for life. There's just, unless some crazy act of fate kills me before that time comes, I feel like, yeah, I got it. I'm getting out. And if I can thrive in prison, I'm sure I can thrive out there. Again, like I said before, I paid off my restitution with royalties from I made inside a prison cell, man. If I can make it in prison. If I can make money with nothing, I'm sure I can survive out there these days. I'm not the 19-year-old kid I was.
What do you see yourself doing if you do, in fact, get the chance to be out here?
Well, so my not my biological father, but the guy I call dad, he drove trucks, man. And a few years ago, I think 3 years ago, I was listening to NPR, and at the time there was something like a 200,000 driver deficit in the trucking industry, and the projection for the next 5 years was that would drop by another 500,000. They're like really in need of people to drive. And for me, that's like a cell on wheels, man. But with, satellite TV and the internet. And I figure, I thought about this a lot, actually. I have options. Like I said, I'm an electronic systems technician, among other things. Like, I can get a job. I'm good with my hands. I'm a smart guy. I work hard. I'm disciplined. I'm ethical. I'm punctual. But the bigger trucking companies, they'll pay for a membership to a gym. I work out, but also that's a place to shower. They'll give you a per diem for a motel room each night, and they don't really seem to give a damn if you put it in your pocket and sleep in the truck. I figure I can see the Grand Canyon and the biggest ball of yarn and all the things I missed out on, get out on the open road and not have to pay rent. I can just bank the money so that I can, work my way toward retirement, play catch up financially, and kind of reintegrate into the world on my terms, because, I would be mostly in the truck by myself. Because I know I have social anxieties. Hell, when I came here from 180 Design, after almost 20 years of being cell-fed, to have to go in this chow hall, this big cafeteria with all the noise and the movement, man, I had sweat running down my ribs. I couldn't eat. So, it took a while to get used to being around people again and loud noises and stuff like that. I figure trucking's probably the way to go, man. I get my solo time. I can decompress inside the truck and earn a living and see the country,
And make a good living while you're at it at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they pay well.
Very well.
It's what you would call a buyer's market at this point. The employee has the power as far as that sector is concerned. And then, there's a lot of sectors like that. I saw another thing on some newscast I was watching. It was on the ticker that this is the first year in something like 28 years that enrollment into trade schools outpaced enrollment into community college or universities. Because, for 20 or 30 years, we've been breeding kids that think they're too good to be a plumber or an electrician or do framing and work with their hands. I like physical work. A girl once said to me, it was a couple of years ago, she told me how many boyfriends she was going through. And I was like, man, why do you keep going through all these dudes? She said, I'm tired of not being the bitch in the relationship. These dudes' hands are just way too soft. So getting out there and wanting to jump in the trades, I figured that's probably a benefit. I'm not too good to swing a hammer or turn a wrench. I enjoy it and I'm good at it. While I was taking this electronics course, I had to like kind of step up to the plate and aid my instructor because he was just out of his depth dealing with these guys. And I ended up being the one that did all the hands-on training for the NCCER Corps. It's not like I can't use a skill saw or a hammer or something. I can jump right into the trades, man, even if I can't jump in a truck.
Do you have any last messages, Sean, before we end this, man? I hope to bring you on for a part 2, man. There's so many more questions I would like to ask you about the Pelican Bay shoe and perhaps some other crazy, wild experiences that you might have experienced and other things like, just prison etiquette.
Hey, I definitely want to come back on. I think that sounds like a great idea. I'll come on as many times as you have me. Prison etiquette? What do you mean? Like the fact that most guys in prison sit down to pee?
Yes, things of that nature.
You want me to explain that?
Yeah, things of that nature.
Okay, well, let's jump right into that. Yeah, I sit down to pee, and I'm you know what? I'm really, 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 what do you call that? I'm secure in my manhood. The thing is, imagine being locked in a small, imagine living in your bathroom with another dude, man. You want to wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of some dude pissing in a steel toilet? Furthermore, did you know that when you pee standing up, your urine splashes up to 8 feet? Studies have proven this. Now, I live in my bathroom. That means I make my food right here on this desk 2 feet from the toilet. You think I want my piss in my top ramen? That ain't cool.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Aside from that, did you know the state of California issues each inmate one roll of single-ply, yes, I said single-ply toilet paper per week? And in case you don't know what single-ply means, that means that if you use one layer and you wipe your ass, you're going to be having shit under your fingernails. So how far do you think that goes if you're having to wipe piss off the toilet seat every time you use the bathroom, dude? And concrete's porous, man. The pee splashes soak into the concrete and the whole place smells like piss. It takes months of scrubbing to get that rank smell out of it. I can tell, I'll walk into a cell and it's empty, nobody lives in there. I'll walk right in and I can tell, yes or no, right now, as soon as I get in the doorway, if the last guy peed standing up or not. Because the stench of urine assaults your nose. So yeah, no, that's why guys sit down to pee. I sit down, I pull the leg of my shorts up, and I let it go. And most guys do that, especially on level 4s. You know, on the upper levels and in the shoe, man, you get killed for something like that. You'll die in a cell. The other guy will feel mighty disrespected by you waking him up in the middle of the night with the sound of peeing.
That's pretty wild to think of right there.
Last messages? Yeah. I've heard more than one dude talk himself into a coffin. I tell them stories later if you want to. But you said parting message. I don't know. Parting message is hit me up. I like to talk. You can find me on the messaging app. You can also go check out my...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Verify the things that I've said at the various help-free Sean Rodriguez platforms. There's a website dedicated to it with many, many exhibits, including every single page of my trial transcript, letters from the jurors, copies of the letters from the victim in which he admits he commit perjury to send me to prison for life, good, solid breakdowns of the issues of my case. Again, that is the help-free Sean Rodriguez site on the internet. One is a dedicated website. We have a TikTok, Facebook group. We have, what are they calling it these days? Twitter, X, something like that. Whatever Elon Musk is ruining, we're on that too. And YouTube. Yeah, we're on YouTube. I forgot about that. So, yeah, check me out. Hit me up. I do like to talk. I can't stress that enough. Prison is boring, and I got to tell you, most of the people I meet in here, they kind of suck. So I definitely like to meet people who don't suck. That's awesome. So hit me up. And I hope to be back on as soon as we can schedule again there, Tom. Really do.
No, most definitely, man. I look forward to it. Like I said, there's been so many more topics I have to go ahead and touch on. But you heard the man. Ladies and gentlemen out there, go ahead and hit up my friend right here. Hit up my friend Sean, man. He's right there waiting.
That is Sean, SHAWN, Rodriguez, RODRIGUEZ, and my CDCR number is V as in Victor 16387, and I am at the California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo, California.
And
thanks for having me, man.
Most definitely, the pleasure was mine, man. And just like that, we're gone, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bam. Whew.